Hey everybody, it's Rob here. Welcome to what I believe will be the best builds for the upcoming Season 9, starting on Tuesday, July 1st. Before we get into the full list, guys, quick disclaimer, we have not played the final patch notes, and there's a lot of nerfs and quite some buffs here in the final list here. The sheet is going to be below. I also have my builds here updated on the 4 builds. I'm going to also link that below. We don't have planners for all the builds yet, because the campfire was just yesterday. We're still updating a little bit, and obviously this tier list will update consistently and only represents my best guess, but with a lot of testing and a lot of hours into the game. There's also one thing here before we get into the builds that they didn't mention in the campfire chat. This was under miscellaneous, where they say here, and this could be very good for a lot of builds, that the monster health increase per pit tier after Torment 1 has been slightly reduced to ensure a wider range of builds succeed in their journey to Torment 4. So this sounds to me like there is a health nerf coming for the pits to make it a bit easier to get your gems to 100 and stuff. We don't know exactly what it means. They haven't talked about it. But, you know, even if it's just 1% and then it's like multiplied over 100 tiers, there might be a good way to see more builds doing pit 100. But there are some classes that are really going to struggle with the current power scaling, such as the Barbarians, sadly. So we will see exactly what's going to happen there. But yeah, let's get into the build. So just make sure you take everything here with a grain of salt. So we're starting in B tier. We're not even really looking at like C tier or below. So there's the Earth Spike Druid here. It got a pretty cool buff, double damage. There's also another basic skill build with the Crown. That is like C tier, maybe bottom of B tier. So there's some decent Druid stuff here and just a lot of other classes here that work as well. The top of B tier basically here is the Lunging Strike Barb. And with a heavy heart, guys, I gotta say, this is the highest Barb build of the entire tier list. It's basically between Lunging Strike, Flay, Earthquake, which is Giga nerfed, and Mighty Throw. And I think Lunging Strike is gonna pull ahead. But yeah, the B in Barb stands for B tier, guys. This is kind of what you can expect with Lunging Strike. So this is like a boss kill on Torment 4 on the PTR. It's been slightly buffed since then, but keep in mind, guys, this is with perfect gear. We have like all the Uber Uniques and everything, and this is basically what the Lunging Strike Barb can do against the boss. It still kills it like 11 billion or something hits. It still kills it like relatively fast, but this is basically the best that the Barb class can do at the very moment. And yeah, it's not really like, you know, all too crazy. I also have a Belial kill here, but you can already kind of see it's going to be struggling a little bit against Belial. This is a T4 Belial kill. And this is like kind of what you can expect for like a top B tier build. And it's maybe even slightly buffed from here. But there's not really any strong contender for the Barb anymore. You also have Flay that got slightly buffed, but overall, the Barb comes in last place for me as well in the entire tier list. And the Lunging Strike is the best one. It's also very decent for leveling. So I think this is the worst class for the upcoming season, but still there's a little bit of something to look forward to if you want to be playing Lunging Strike. I definitely don't recommend playing Earthquake anymore because everything got nerfed with Earthquake. And then there are some other cool builds here. One more that I want to mention here is the Evade Spiritborn. This one here is a very nice farmer and might be my starter class because we get to it later. Spiritborn has quite a few builds in S tier that you can transition to, and Evade is a great leveling build and super fast for farming, especially if they make Torment 4 easier. You can see this is already pit 60, so this is like double the health of Torment 4. And you know, you have this like nice new amulet and a lot of things here that make this Evade Spiritborn still a powerhouse for farming. And I think it's personally one of the most favorable builds. But this is also, you know, in B tier because you can't really push the pits that well with this. But it's still going to be a very nice build. You can even use it somewhat for boss killing, but there's definitely other builds on the Spiritborn that I recommend for boss killing. But basically, you can farm up on Evade and then transition into an S tier build for the Spiritborn. And Evade is just going to be a ton of fun and also one of the builds here that I'm looking forward to do. And you can kind of see here the boss. This is like how you would kill an Uber boss as well. You see, like you just spawn him and boom, he's dead. So that's pretty nice. And there might even be some other ultimates that you can use now instead of the Hunter. Because they buffed like a ton of the other ultimates as well. But this is pretty much B tier. There's another build here that's kind of new, is the McFlurry Rogue. There's a new helm for the Rogues, but this is, I don't think, the best Rogue build, and it looked somewhat underwhelming when we were looking at it in the dev footage here. So this is the B tier, and now we're getting into the best builds here slowly. I have something here where I basically separated the A tier into like an A minus, because A tier for me is this build can do pit 100 and it can comfortably level all the glyphs, you know? So this is like all the builds that we have there. And then there's this A minus, like these builds can definitely do like 95 or something. They're a bit weaker, but they're not quite as weak as B tier. So this could be like, this is 1 tier for me, but just keep in mind that these are a bit weaker. We're starting here with the Blood Bone Spear Necro, which has received a crazy overpower nerf. You're basically not going to overpower anymore, or only overpower once whenever you cast a Bone Prism at the enemies. And this is going to be a huge issue for the Necro and a huge bump in the road for the power level. Plus we have OP nerfs. OP is basically going to work like crit now. It's not going to scale with your life. It's not going to scale with your fortify. So a lot of those overpower builds, like they fell a bit out. They're still somewhat decent. I still expect this build to do like well in the high 90s because it was so strong. I think right now this build did like some crazy stuff. Like it did a pit 100, yeah, like a pit 116. And yeah, I think it's going to go down like at least 15 tiers, maybe a bit more. That's why it has potential to go into the A tier, but I'm not 100% sure. The same is here with the best rogue builds. So, you know, the Death Trap Rogue has been a fan favorite for many seasons, has been the best build. They have nerfed it significantly. If you're just looking at the patch notes here, you're looking at Death Trap. Yeah, the cooldown is reduced, the damage is reduced, the scaling is reduced, and a bunch of nerfs here. But this build, and obviously on top of this, overpower got nerfed. But this is still, I think, one of the best rogue builds next to the poison twisting blades. They really buffed up the key passive here for the twisting blades with poison version. So this is a lot stronger with all the imbuements and stuff. And I think these are going to be the top 2 rogue builds. I don't think it's quite as bad as Barb, but these are the highest rogue builds on my entire list here. So it's either Death Trap or the twisting blades. I don't think the other builds will really, you know, compete with them that easily. And it's going to be hard, very hard for them to do pit 100. But you can do like up in the high 90s with this basically. And then there is 2 Sorg builds. This is not a top Sorg build. We have an S tier build on Sorg, of course. Chain Lightning is still pretty decent. It did 103, and I think it can still have potential to do in the high 90s. The same for Meteors. There's definitely potential for the Sorg. However, there is one Sorg King build. We'll talk about it when we talk about S tier. That is overshadowing them all. So if you really want to play Sorg, I recommend the S tier. And yeah, then we're going to go to the top of A tier here. There's a lot of interesting builds. So first of all, we have Quill Volley. This is like the normal Spiritborn build that we've been playing, you know, for many seasons. And this is still very strong. They did not, as far as we know, they didn't nerf the Jaguar main hall double dip. So this is still based on a bug. They only nerfed the OP, and this did 108. Now, with the OP nerfs, I'm pretty certain this is still going to do pit 100. Might not do the highest pits, not S tiers like 105 in my opinion. So this is just about pit 100, I think. Then next, we have the Druids. So there are 3 top Druid builds that even have potential, in my opinion, to move into S tier. They've really did some great stuff for the Druid this time around. And again, some of these might move into S tier. I think I put them A tier a bit more conservative because we don't really know for sure. But Druid is definitely going to be a nice class finally this season. So first of all, we have the Companion Druid. They did a pretty cool bug fix to the aspect of the alpha here, where, you know, you're using like your companion wolves to deal damage as a summoning build, and summoning builds are getting a pretty big buff from some of the Horadric jewels. You know, you have this one that buffs summon damage by 50x, and the aspect of the alpha got bug fixed, and all the bonus damage properly work with the werewolves. So yeah, the werewolves are finally scary. It already did a pit 94, and it only got buffed after this. So I could definitely see this doing well into the pit 100. The same is here for the Flash Render Druid. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to link this in the tier list here real quick as well. This is basically like a shouting build. You see, this is kind of like killing Belial, like very fast. This is like kind of the power level that you can expect from an A tier build here. You see it's hitting for like a couple 100 billion. Definitely way stronger than what we watched earlier with the Barb. And you can also do like pit 100. You're using this like Petrify and shout. Obviously, this got a bit nerfed because of the OP nerfs. This was an overpower build as well. But this is a pretty cool druid build that's going to obviously revolve a lot around button smashing. But it also has potential to clear. You see, this was a kind of like a 100 speedrun. It also has potential to basically go beyond 100, even with the OP nerfs. I'm pretty sure this is potential to do pit 100. And then we have the new build here. This is the pulverize. With this poison puddle, they have significantly juiced the rotting light bringer here. Before it was only every 10 seconds it spawned a puddle. Now you always spawn a puddle. You guarantee overpower. And there's also some additional buffs here that you can basically proc the puddle many more times. And this here is kind of what it looks like you know, in the game now. And when you're like doing this puddle, you can kind of see here this druid. You can even stack these poison puddles on top of each other. You can see he basically keeps stacking them, and then he keeps pulverizing into the puddles, guaranteeing an overpower, guaranteeing a lot of procs here for this puddle. So that's looking pretty good to me, and certainly has a lot of potential also to move to S tier. I put it on the top of A tier, because I want to be cautiously optimistic. This is the highest druid build on this tier list. It's in top of A tier, but again, it might move into the S tier as we finally get to test it, and we'll see all the mechanics. Obviously, guys, keep in mind, there's always, you know, a potential for broken builds to emerge, right? Like usually the top builds are based around bugs. It's no exception this season. So maybe there's, you know, a change to Pain Gorge, or maybe the Barb still has a way to deal infinite bleed damage. I don't think so, but this might happen. But if this happens, it's a bug, and I'm pretty sure Blizzard will fix it pretty quickly. So just keep that in mind. And then at the very top of A tier, we have the Summon Mage. This is like a top 3 Necromancer build. There's going to be more Necromancer builds in S tier. I put this at very top of A tier. It did 101 already, and it got a buff. So again, like it might even crack the 105 and move into S tier with the Summoning Mages. They basically made the mages even stronger now. They're gonna become bigger. The skeletal mastery on these new gloves is now working properly, and you're basically like fully embracing this like mage only playstyle. They kind of double down on this. They don't want you to have any other minions but mages on this build. And yeah, summoning necro is kind of the identity, in my opinion, of the necro class. So it's very nice to see this being buffed and being at the very top. Like definitely a comfortable pit 100. Probably can go all the way into S tier and 105. So Necro is eating good. And then, obviously, we're getting to the top builds here. I'm going to scroll all the way up. We're also going to have a full class ranking that I'm going to explain in a second. Starting at the bottom here, we have the Shadow Dot Necromancer. This is basically the shadow damage over time build that we have here. And it got tremendously buffed again in this patch notes here with the Affliction Key passive, getting even crazier. And you know, kind of there's like a very good synergies with dots this season, also some good synergies with the Heraldic Jewels and some of the powers. So I think this has a tremendous potential here. The damage cap got increased significantly, and it already did 103 here on the PTR with the Corrupting Wave from Sora. I'm going to link this here in the tier list as well. You can check this out. And yeah, this has, I think, potential to do 105. And in general, I think right now, with the current scaling, 105 for me is the breakpoint to make it into S tier. This basically means even for a more casual player, it's going to be a comfortable pit 100, you know. A tier is more like you're going to like need to push hard in order to clear 100. But if you play an S tier build, it can be like kind of comfortable if you're putting in some effort to clear pit 100 and get your glyphs all the way up, basically. And then next here, we have the top necro build, despite all the nerfs, despite the OP nerfs, for the 4th season in a row. I believe it's going to be Bloodwave. This build has already done a very, very high pit clear on the PTR with 107. And the OP nerf obviously hits it, but I don't think it's going to drop more than like 2 or 3 tiers. And even with that, it can probably still do pit 105 plus. So still very, very strong build. And then we're coming into the top 3 guys of the season. One of the best builds, guys, is the Hydra Sorcerer. There's been a lot of changes in the patch notes here with the Hydra. They've buffed the direct version. They've nerfed a little things and fixed some bugs. But overall, all in all, the Sorcerer Hydra build is going to be very similar to what we've seen on the PTR. I was chatting with Mikuna a bit, and we kind of agree it was like around -1 tier. Obviously, not counting for any of the shatter bugs. This is going to be non-bugged shatter build. Shatter, or at least the gizmo, has been nerfed. So there's not going to be shatter double dipping, I hope. And this is going to be a legit build that can be doing a pit 105 cloth, I think, both with the dot and the direct version. So if you're going to the planner here, I usually have a starter version as well. You can kind of see here. There's a direct damage version without uber uniques. This is pretty solid. And, you know, this is basically revolving around the freshly buffed rune here, which gives you a 50x crit multiplier, a 20x crit chance. And it also has this like a flash fire here that's also doing amazing crit damage multiplier. So this is very strong. It's also one of the strongest leveling builds because Hydra plus Firewall, like Hydra is a skill, it doesn't have a cooldown, it doesn't cost resources, it's going to be very good for leveling. You can pretty much play this all the way through. I also have a leveling build, I'm going to talk about that on Sunday. So we're going to have this here ready. Hydra Sorg is very nice, one of the best builds. I think this might be the most popular build of the entire season. And then you have this direct damage version, and then you also have a dot version here that you can play like more into endgame, and the basically benefit here from the cool changes that they did to the amulet as well, where it's now primordial binding, so you also have a very nice dot version. I think in the end the dot version might still have a slight edge, but early on I think the direct damage version is gonna be a bit better. And you also have this like battle caster aspect that you can use early on, which gives you like extra ranks to your conjurations, giving you up to 10 extra ranks to the Hydra, making it big, making it blue. And this is just like some of my early testing I did without chatter. And you can kind of see there's also a tremendous quality of life buff here, basically increasing the speed, making the Hydra look huge and blue. And this teleport speed and the Hydra attack speed is even improved as of the final patch of the season. So this is going to be even faster, and the Sorg is already, you know, one of the fastest classes in speed farming, and now the Hydra shoots even faster. So this is probably like going to be a lot faster. It's a great farming build, and it's one of the best pushing builds of the entire game. So Hydra Sorcerer is eating good. You know, if you haven't played Sorg yet, I definitely highly recommend the Hydra Sorg. I think overall, this can be the best build for farming and pushing in the entire game. So Hydra Sorg, again, planner linked below. And then on the top, on the very top here, we have two Spiritborn builds. And Spiritborn has been pretty weak class ever since the expansion, but there's still these underlying bugs that are in the game where the Jaguar main hall here is double dipping. And these builds are no exception. This is the main hall here. It's basically benefiting from multipliers twice. It doesn't really sound like Blizzard is fixing this, or at least they haven't said anything. So unless it's a shadow nerf, these are the top builds with double dipping Jaguar, Mystic Circles, and all that stuff. And we also use the new pants, the Thorns Pantalones. This has also been nerfed a bit, as well as the Hunter. However, the build was so strong on the PTR. It did a pit 115 on the PTR. And even if we lose double damage and then we lose another pit from the Jaguar, from the Hunter, we're only going down like, you know, 4 or 5 pit tiers. And that still means we can do a very comfortable 110. And just look at this. This was like me on the PTR, basically doing 110 here. You can kind of just see, you basically just walk up to the monsters. You make a bit of a pull. You start attacking. And the DPS, as soon as the dot and the thorns is coming online, it takes a second. And then you see like how the elites will basically melt here if you do everything correct in your rotation. And you're having a tremendous amount of damage. I think this one was not even the best pull. I think if we're going like down to the next one here, you can kind of see you want to play around these mystic circles here. And you see this is an elite pack, single target pack. And yeah, look how fast it melts. Like this is like the Jaguar main hall dips. You kind of see like you're just proccing your thorns, and then as soon as the Jaguar main hall kicks in, like boom, the thing is losing half the HP. And this is in 110. So you can do this in 105 after the nerfs. And again, I wasn't like fully min-maxed or anything, and we were like kind of blasting through this, right? I'll have a dedicated build guide on the Hydra Sorg and also on this Spiritborn build here, just because they're so strong and they have so much damage. And Obviously, this is completely melting like all the torment bosses and everything. If you can do 110 on the PTR, it was insane. So 110, I'm expecting this to do 110 or higher. There's also 115 clear by Mr. Do Not Hit Me. And the cool thing is, guys, there's multiple variants to play. So I was playing this with Quill Volley. It can be kind of squishy early on. There's also a more tanky version here with Crushing Hands, giving you extra barrier every attack, and then using counter-offensive. So this is also a very strong version. I think that also cleared Pit 115. So there's a lot of versatility, right? Because you can pretty much use any skill on the Spiritborn to trigger this pants. It doesn't have to be Quill Volley. Quill Volley is pretty good. But there are a ton of different options in general for this. And yeah, the class is tremendously strong. And as long as the double dip is in the game, which I think it is, it's going to be the best of the best of the best. And there's also another build here. I made a video about this as well. However, I don't really recommend this because this is a build that is only good for high pit push. It basically lags out the server using the Craze of the Dead God to proc Touch of Death dot and then consume this dot to deal a tremendous amount of damage with the double dipping. But this is only really like, a high pit build. It's in S tier because it's one of the strongest. It's probably going to do 110 plus as well. It did 118, and the only thing they really changed is some overpower stuff here. And this is going to remain a top contender, maybe even the strongest build. However, 99% of people will want to be playing the Thorns variant because this is not beginner, casual, or gameplay friendly, basically. It's only for high pits, nothing else. So definitely recommend the Thorns Spiritborn here as the best build of the entire season. Okay, this tier list, again, alongside, all my planners here, is going to be linked below. I have basically all the Season 9 planners. We also going to have the written tier list up here on the forward, so you can basically just click, I don't know, you can click like any class and you can kind of see like, the builds here that are updated. Some of them I will still work on, especially Druid. I'm going to have them probably ready by tomorrow. So like Sunday, Monday, they're all going to be ready. So some of them are to be determined. I definitely want to cover every A tier build. And then a lot of the B tier builds, I don't really have many planners for. And C tier, there's still a lot of weak builds. In general, guys, I was a bit frustrated to see, this like big approach from Blizzard to nerf the top builds. Like, there's always two ways to approach it. Like either you can, cut off the top and nerf all the S tier builds, which is kind of what they did. Or they could have just, buffed the weaker builds, and I would have much loved to see that. However, there are still a couple of strong, builds, especially like Hydra, especially Sorcerer with Hydra and Spiritborn with Thorns, are cool new builds, and the Druid has some cool new stuff as well. However, I think like especially the Barb and the Rogue are looking pretty rough. So I'm definitely looking forward to play the Sorcerer and the Spiritborn. And yeah, unfortunately, not so much the Barb. I'll probably play it. I'll make a separate video about this, about my plans and everything. But yeah, the Barb is not looking the best. I have a lot of leveling stuff coming out. And one more thing here is my final rating in terms of power level. So I think rank 1 goes to the Spiritborn. Rank 2 goes to the Sorc, in my opinion. Like, Sorc is going to be very popular with Hydra. It's a very cool, very fun build to play. However, there is also the Necromancer, which technically has even more strong builds than the Sorc, but the Hydra Sorc is just so popular that I think I want to kind of like rate the Sorc even above, because it's a bit of a popularity rating as well. And then we have on a solid midfield, but maybe even big potential for S tier, we have the Druid. And then, kind of the end of the field is the Rogue that maybe still has the potential to do Pit 100. And then last but not least, but very sad on the last place, is the Barb. Depending on how these final pit balance changes are going to be, the Barb does not have a build that can even do Pit 100, right? Lunging Strike is the top contender, and it did like a Pit 90, and maybe now can do a 95 with like GG full Uber gear. So yeah, Barb is not eating good. Obviously, if they will rescale, and depending by how much they rescale the pits, this might change, but the relative power level is not going to change, right? Let's say Pit 100 becomes easier, then this is just going to be Pit 105, and this is going to be Pit 110, and this is probably going to be like Pit 100. But right now, I think A tier is like good potential to do 100, and S tier is good potential to do 105, and everything else like falls in line here kind of in B tier. Let me know what you think down below, guys. I'm definitely looking forward to be playing the season, and there's going to be a ton of fun, I think, for all of us. Again, everything is linked below. Hope you enjoyed, guys. Leveling builds and also top build guides for Sorcerer and Spiritborn are coming here on my YouTube channel the next days. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think and what class you're starting in the comments below. Take it easy, my friends, and I'll see you soon. GG. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.